It was the parrot that ruined my life in exactly 4 words. 1 minute, I was sitting on the couch, nursing a cheap beer, and watching the muted chaos of a baseball game. The next, my wife's bright green African gray, normally obsessed with repeating dumb TikTok sounds, belted out a sentence so horrifying, so impossible to misunderstand, that I dropped the bottle right onto the carpet. Good boy, Kyle. Harder, baby. The sound of the glass shattering was deafening, but somehow the blood pounding in my ears was louder. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just sat there, frozen, while Mango, yeah, that's what we named the damn bird, started giggling like a drunk teenager, before chirping the same dirty phrase again, louder, prouder, like he was showing off a new party trick. I'm Jake Atwood. I'm 38 years old. I pay the mortgage on this house. I built the deck with my own hands last summer, sweating through weekends while Madison, my wife of 9 years, sat outside sipping white wine spritzers and posting Instagram selfies captioned #blessed. Now here I was, in the middle of my living room, realizing the bird knew something I didn't. And if a talking parrot was telling the truth, it meant my wife was lying to my face. Somewhere upstairs, I heard the faint sound of the shower running. Madison was home. She was just 2 rooms away, scrubbing away sins I hadn't even begun to imagine yet. My hands were shaking so badly I almost cut myself picking up the broken glass. I didn't know whether to storm upstairs and demand the truth, or sit there until my heart stopped hammering against my ribs like it was trying to break free. Instead, I just stood there, staring at Mango like he was a messenger from hell itself. He tilted his head at me, innocent, expectant. Then he said it again in that same high, lilting voice that made me want to put my fist through the wall. Good boy, Kyle. Harder, baby. This time it was followed by a low, breathy moan that sounded exactly like my wife. And in that moment, I knew. I knew everything was about to burn. I hadn't even heard the last of what Mango was trained to say. But trust me, what came next made the first sentence feel like a warm-up act. So there I was, standing in the middle of my once-safe suburban living room, being personally destroyed by a feathered narc with a 3rd-grade vocabulary. Awesome. I mean, seriously, how do you even react to something like that? There's no guidebook for what to do when your wife's parrot tells you she's been riding Kyle like a rodeo champion. Trust me, I checked. Google was zero help. Meanwhile, Mango was vibing like he had front row seats to my mental breakdown. He flapped his wings, bobbed his little gray head, and treated me to a symphony of betrayal and surround sound. Harder, baby. Don't stop, Kyle. Oh, good. Now we were adding perseverance to the list of sins. I wiped my hands on my jeans. Not because they were dirty, but because what else do you do when your soul is leaking out of your fingertips? And tried to think like a rational adult. You know, one of those guys from the therapy podcast Madison was always pretending to listen to. Step 1, breathe. Step 2, don't throw the bird into traffic, no matter how good it might feel. Step 3, figure out if Kyle is a real person or just some weird inside joke gone horribly, horribly wrong. I wasn't that lucky. I tiptoed upstairs like some bargain bin secret agent. Every step on the carpeted stairs felt like wading through cement. Halfway up, Mango shouted one final gem that nearly made me lose my balance. You're better than Jake! Sweet. I paused, gripping the banister so hard my knuckles turned whiter than my wedding tux. I wasn't just being cheated on. I was being outperformed. Honestly, if I ever needed an excuse to jump headfirst into a midlife crisis, this was it. Hello, spontaneous motorcycle purchase and deeply embarrassing tattoos. The bathroom door was closed. I could hear the water pounding against the tiles. Madison was humming something off-key. A habit she picked up when she was lying or when she thought she was about to get away with something. Kind of like a criminal whistling while stuffing cash into a duffel bag. I raised my fist, ready to knock. And that's when my brain, bless its rotten, cowardly little heart, asked a very important question. Are you really ready to hear her lie to your face? Because let's be real, she wasn't going to confess. Cheaters don't walk out of the bathroom dripping shampoo and go, "Hey honey, quick thing before breakfast. I've been banging a guy named Kyle on your couch." Cool with that? No, I needed a plan, a strategy, a trap. And lucky for me, I had just the thing downstairs. A highly motivated, extremely talkative little snitch with feathers. I turned and went back down the stairs, feeling the slow, simmering rage build in my chest like a bad burrito. Mango was still perched on top of his cage, bobbing side to side like a DJ warming up the crowd. "Who's a bad girl?" he chirped. I smiled. The kind of smile that makes people slowly back away from you at Home Depot. "Oh, Mango," I said, picking up my phone. "Buddy, you have no idea." I hit record. Because if Madison wanted to gaslight me later, she was about to find out that her own damn bird had already signed the confession papers. And let me tell you, that was before Mango dropped the next bombshell that almost made me physically black out. I had exactly one plan, and it involved my wife getting exposed by her own parrot and a Samsung Galaxy S21. Honestly, if you had told me last week that my marriage would hinge on the testimony of a bird whose greatest accomplishment until now was learning to yell, "Fart attack," during Thanksgiving dinner, I would have said you were insane. But hey, life comes at you fast. Mango was loving every second of his 15 minutes of fame. I pressed record, set the phone down on the coffee table, and casually walked to the kitchen like I wasn't about to commit the suburban version of espionage. Mango, sensing the spotlight, puffed up his chest and absolutely went off. "Good boy, Kyle. Madison loves Kyle." "Ooh, yes, Kyle, right there." You ever hear a parrot fake moan? Because let me tell you, it's one of those things you can never, ever scrub out of your brain with holy water and therapy. I stood there in the kitchen, hands on my hips, feeling my soul leave my body in slow, shameful waves. And right when I thought things couldn't get worse, ding dong. Oh yeah, enter Mrs. Blevins, 86 years old. 4 feet 9 inches of pure distilled evil wrapped in orthopedic shoes and a cloud of lavender perfume strong enough to kill bees. She lived next door, and had devoted the past 20 years of her life to gathering gossip like a squirrel hoards nuts for the apocalypse. And now, she was standing on my porch, waving an envelope in one hand and shaking her tiny arthritic fist with the other like she was ready to challenge me to trial by combat. I opened the door half an inch. "Mrs. Blevins?" I said, mustering my last ounce of fake cheerfulness. "What an absolute horror, honor." She narrowed her eyes, taking in my disheveled appearance, the glass shards still glittering on the carpet, and Mango screeching sex noises in the background. "I knew it," she shrieked. "That tramp is cheating on you." Subtle as ever. Before I could say a word, she shoved the envelope into my chest hard enough to knock me back a step. "Proof," she hissed. "Saw her myself." "Right here." I opened it, half expecting it to be a coupon for adult diapers out of spite. But no. Inside were grainy, zoomed-in pictures taken with what must have been the world's first smartphone. There was Madison, clear as day, locking lips with a dude who looked like a Calvin Klein model got hit by a freight train of poor life choices. Kyle, apparently. They were outside our house. Broad daylight, classy. "You been working late, huh, Mrs.?" Blevins cackled like a witch who just won the lottery. "Poor thing. You deserve better, like my granddaughter. She's 36, recently divorced, and only mildly into witchcraft now." I closed my eyes and counted to 5, because homicide charges are expensive. "Thanks, Mrs. Blevins," I said, taking the envelope with a strained smile. "I'll cherish these forever." She gave me a finger gun, winked, it was horrifying, and hobbled off down the sidewalk, probably to summon more demons or bake cookies. Honestly, it could go either way with her. I closed the door, turned back to Mango, and saw him flapping around the cage like he had just won America's Got Talent. "Madison bad, Kyle good," he shouted gleefully. I picked up my phone, still recording, and grinned. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I present to you Exhibit A, the Betrayal Mixtape. Featuring special guest vocals by Mango the Homewrecker, and exclusive paparazzi shots courtesy of Mrs. Blevins, professional meddler." Oh yeah, this was going to get ugly. Real ugly. And I was absolutely here for it. Operation Catch the Cheater was officially in motion, and let me tell you, I was feeling like a low-budget James Bond minus the cool gadgets, charming smile, and general will to live. First step, bait the trap. Second step, catch Madison red-handed. Third step, figure out if the emotional trauma qualified me for some sort of tax break. Simple, right? Armed with Mango's filthy playlist and Mrs. Blevins' blurry yet devastating photographic evidence, I sat in the kitchen sketching out my plan on the back of a Taco Bell receipt. Because that's the level of professionalism we were dealing with here. I was halfway through scribbling Stage 2, shame her into oblivion, when someone banged on the back door. It was Mrs. Blevins, holding a casserole dish like it was a loaded weapon. "Open up, you big idiot," she barked through the glass. Naturally, my first thought was that she poisoned the casserole out of sheer neighborhood spite. But since my dignity was already hanging by a thread, why not add potential food poisoning to the day's highlights? I opened the door. She marched inside, set the casserole down with a thud, and looked me dead in the eye. "I'm helping," she said. "No offense, Mrs. Blevins," I said, rubbing my temples, "but unless that dish explodes into a squad of divorce lawyers, I'm not sure you're qualified for this mission." She smirked like she'd just been appointed supreme commander of the operation. "You think you're the first sad sack I've seen get cheated on?" she scoffed. "Please, I practically have a punch card." She tapped the side of her nose like a cartoon spy. "And honey, you got yourself an amateur." I blinked. "You're saying you've done this before?" "More times than you've changed your underwear this month, judging by the state of your laundry room," she said, not missing a beat. "Now shut up and listen." For the next 30 minutes I sat there, mouth slightly open, as Mrs. Blevins outlined a plan so devious, so intricate, it made my Taco Bell napkin scribbles look like a toddler's finger painting. Hidden cameras. Live feed to my phone, strategic exit plans, backup witness list, a freaking code word system. The woman was basically a one-woman FBI. "And before you ask," she added, slapping a folder onto the table, "yes, I have the blueprints of your house printed from the county records." "You're welcome." I stared at her in awe, wondering how I'd ever thought she was just a nosy, crabby old bat. Turns out she was my nosy, crabby old bat, and I was never more grateful. "You're a terrifying woman, Mrs. B," I said, shaking my head in amazement. She beamed like I'd handed her an Oscar. "Damn right I am. Now let's ruin a homewrecker's week, shall we?" By the time Madison came downstairs, towel on her head, smelling like betrayal and overpriced conditioner, everything was set. Hidden microphones tucked behind the picture frames. Tiny camera disguised in the fake ficus plant she insisted on keeping by the door. Mango fully briefed and ready to freestyle if necessary. Madison glanced around suspiciously, probably wondering why I wasn't simping over her as usual. But she didn't say anything. She just gave me one of those fake sweet smiles women reserve for waiters who bring the wrong drink. Meanwhile, Mrs. Blevins was already parked across the street with binoculars and a thermos full of what she called war juice. It was at least 70% vodka. She texted me one word: showtime. I nodded to myself, heart pounding, and smiled back at Madison. "Oh, babe," I said, voice dripping with syrupy sarcasm. "You're going to have such an interesting day." And trust me, that wasn't even the biggest twist coming. Because Kyle was about to show up early, and Mango had been saving one final piece of dirt. If you'd told me 48 hours ago that my best friends in the world would be an 86-year-old gossip goblin and a sociopathic parrot, I would have laughed in your face and blocked your number. But here we were, official team name, Operation Homewreckers Must Die. Unofficial motto, petty is powerful. The living room looked like a crime scene from a Netflix docuseries produced by drunk interns. Wires everywhere. Coffee table covered in microphones, cameras, half-eaten donuts, and Mrs. Blevins' war juice, which, judging by the smell, could probably strip paint off a battleship. Mango, the star witness, was perched proudly on his cage, occasionally belting out practice runs. "Kyle's bigger than Jake." "Faster, harder, don't stop." "Bad Madison." "Bad girl." Honestly, if the Academy had a Best Supporting Actor for Betrayal award, that bird would have swept the category. Mrs. Blevins stood by the window with binoculars, scanning the street like she was waiting for a Soviet invasion. "He's coming," she said, sipping from her thermos like it was a fine wine. "How do you know?" I asked, already halfway dead inside. She turned to me with a look that said, "Oh, you sweet, dumb child." "Because he's a man," she said. "And men are predictable as hell when they think with the wrong head." Fair enough. A few minutes later, a beat-up Dodge Charger rolled up like it was starring in the world's saddest Fast and Furious spin-off. Out stepped Kyle. Tall, muscled, and wearing a backward cap. Because apparently, cliches are alive and well in this economy. I ducked behind the couch, clutching the phone that streamed everything directly from the hidden cameras to my screen. "Mrs." Blevins cackled softly. "He's dumber than a bag of rocks," she muttered. "This'll be easier than stealing bingo chips from blind geriatrics." Madison flung the door open before Kyle even reached it. Hair done, makeup perfect, wearing the same stupid smile she used whenever she was about to spend my hard-earned money on self-care retreats that mostly involved mojitos and regret. And just like that, they were inside, giggling, whispering, practically dry humping against my goddamn fake ficus plant. Mango let out a long, dramatic sigh. "Here comes Kyle," he said, sing-song. I swear the bird was loving this more than oxygen. We listened as Madison and Kyle flopped onto the couch. Heard Madison giggle and say something that made my blood pressure shoot to levels NASA would find impressive. "I told Jake I had a work emergency," she said between laughs. "You're a bad, bad girl," Kyle growled. Mango screeched, bad girl," like an overzealous referee. Mrs. Blevins fist-pumped the air so hard her thermos nearly flew across the room. "That's it, baby," she cheered. "Get it all on tape. This is better than TV." I wanted to die. But also maybe buy Mango a lifetime supply of premium birdseed. Then things took a sudden, unexpected turn. Kyle, bless his single brain cell, started talking. And it was beautiful. "So, when are you going to leave him, babe?" Kyle asked, voice full of that classic entitled energy only idiots and MLM recruiters have. Madison laughed, actually laughed, and said, "I'm not stupid. I'm waiting until after his annual bonus clears." Then boom! "Bye, Jake." I froze. Mrs. Blevins stopped mid-sip and whispered, "Oh, hell, no!" Mango, without missing a beat, yelled, "Gold digger, cacaw!" I couldn't make this up if I tried. "Mrs. Blevins slammed her thermos down so hard I thought the table might shatter. "New plan," she said, voice colder than a tax audit. "We don't just catch her, we wreck her." And just like that, this wasn't just a betrayal investigation anymore. This was personal. I looked at Mrs. B, my unlikely battle comrade, and we both grinned. Mango flapped his wings and squawked dramatically, as if sensing the shift. "Destroy mode activated," he screamed. Damn right, Mango. Game on. If you've never plotted the total annihilation of your soon-to-be ex-spouse, with an ancient battle witch and a parrot who thinks he's a Navy SEAL, let me just say, you're missing out. We had a plan. A crazy, borderline illegal, definitely lawsuit-worthy plan, and honestly, it was glorious. First, Mrs. Blevins whipped out what she called her go bag. It contained duct tape, permanent markers, glitter bombs, an air horn, and a set of fake mustaches. I didn't even ask. At this point, you stop questioning and just accept that you're riding shotgun in a demolition derby piloted by a drunk psychic. "So, what's the play, General?" I asked, already mentally drafting my apology to whatever poor cop would have to arrest us. Mrs. Blevins cackled, her dentures nearly flying out. "Simple. We hit her where it hurts." "In her tiny black heart," I guessed. "In her Instagram following," she said, deadly serious. Because yes, Madison's one true love wasn't Kyle. It was her 11,000 carefully curated followers who believed she was living her best wine mom life in yoga pants and crop tops. And tonight, we were about to burn that influencer empire to the ground. Step 1. Leverage Mango's talents. We set up Madison's ring light and phone on the vanity, her sacred content creation zone, and staged the crime scene of the century. Fake love notes from Kyle, heart-shaped condoms, courtesy of Mrs. B's extensive just-in-case drawer, which I've chosen never to ask about. And best of all, a custom banner Mango helped make. Bright red letters. "Sorry, Jake, I love Kyle's package more." Was it mature? No. Was it hilarious? Absolutely yes. Meanwhile, Mrs. Blevins was putting her covert ops skills to use, hacking Madison's laptop like some geriatric hacker queen. "Passwords are easy when you realize narcissists always use their own damn names," she grunted, hammering the keys. Try Madison Queen 2023. Bingo. Inside her Google Drive, a treasure trove, secret selfies with Kyle, videos, deleted messages she thought were safely gone. Enough evidence to make a Lifetime movie and 3 spin-offs. Step 2, public humiliation. While Kyle and Madison were otherwise engaged on the couch and honestly gross, please Lysol everything later, we got to work. We accidentally scheduled a post on Madison's Instagram. Picture, her passionately kissing Kyle, courtesy of Mrs. B's zoom lens magic. Caption, "Sometimes you have to upgrade your man. Sorry, Jake. #new beginnings, #blessed. Timed perfectly to go live at exactly 7:30 p.m., right when she usually posted motivational quotes about loyalty, self-love, and choosing happiness. Irony so thick you could pour syrup on it. Mrs. Blevins toasted the whole setup with her thermos. To petty revenge, she declared. To future lawsuits, I added. Mango chimed in from the couch. Bad girl, get dumped, caw-caw. It was at this point I realized we had officially formed the most chaotic, beautiful alliance in human history. Old woman, broken man, traitor bird. And not to be dramatic, but if they don't make a Marvel movie about us, society is truly broken. Step 3. The grand finale. I took my phone, opened the live security feed, and waited. At exactly 7:29 p.m., Mrs. Blevins gave a solemn nod. Mango saluted with his wing, not kidding. He actually did it. And at 7:30 p.m., the bomb went off. Ding! I watched Madison's phone light up like it had been struck by lightning. Notifications, comments, DMs. Then Kyle's phone. Same chaos. From the living room, Madison shrieked, the kind of scream you hear in horror movies right before the monster eats someone's face off. She scrambled off Kyle like he was on fire, grabbing her phone and shrieking, "What the actual hell?" Kyle, bless him, just blinked at her like a golden retriever who wandered into a physics lecture. Babe, you good? Madison's thumbs were flying so fast I thought she might break the screen. Meanwhile, Kyle sat there scratching his head, clearly realizing that yes, he had in fact hopped aboard a fast-moving, flaming dumpster train. Mrs. Blevins and I stood behind the curtain, barely able to contain our laughter. Mango added the final soundtrack to the chaos, belting, "Bye-bye, Madison, bye-bye, Kyle." I almost cried, from joy. But oh, my friends, this wasn't even close to the end, because Madison hadn't discovered the hidden finale we had prepared upstairs. And trust me, it was going to ruin her. There's an art to revenge. Not just the catch the cheater kind. No, I'm talking about the kind of soul-satisfying devastation so complete their grandkids feel it kind. And let me tell you, our ragtag dream team, me Mrs. Blevins and Mango, the screaming betrayal machine, was Michelangelo level at it. Downstairs, Madison was frantically deleting Instagram posts like her life depended on it. Kyle was sitting there picking Dorito dust out of his teeth, because of course he was. And Mango was chanting, "You're a loser!" Caw-caw! Like a feathered hype man. But the real nuke? The real destruction? It was waiting quietly upstairs. See, while Madison was busy ruining her own life one click at a time, Mrs. Blevins and I had prepared a surprise art installation in the bedroom. An exhibit called The Timeline of Lies and Thirst, a Multimedia Experience. The moment Madison stomped up the stairs, wailing into her phone about hacks and privacy violations and, "Oh my God, Kyle, why aren't you doing anything?" I knew she was about to experience true existential dread. On the bed, taped lovingly like a deranged serial killer's vision board, were printed screenshots of her deleted text to Kyle, "Can't wait to wear that new red lace for you while Jake's away." Booking confirmations for hotels while I was at work. Conferences. The Venmo receipts for emergency spa days that were, in fact, secret rendezvous. And the piece de resistance. A giant framed photo of Mango wearing a tiny detective hat with the caption, "Case closed, B***, TCH. Mrs. Blevins had really outdone herself with that one. The second Madison saw it, she shrieked so loudly that a dog 3 houses down started barking. Then came the crash, then screaming, then Kyle saying, and I quote, "Yo, is this like serious evidence?" Truly, the man had the IQ of warm mayonnaise. From behind the curtain, Mrs. Blevins whispered, and now, the emotional collapse phase. Textbook. Madison, bless her heart, tried everything. First came denial. Jake probably faked all this. Then came anger. "You set me up, you psychopath." Then came bargaining. "We can fix this. We can go to therapy." Meanwhile, Mango provided the background soundtrack by squawking, "Cheater, cheater! Dumpster eater!" We did not teach him that one. He freestyled it. Absolute icon. Kyle, realizing he was about to be collateral damage, slowly started backing toward the door like a man who just realized he was at the wrong gender reveal party, and it involved live explosives. Madison grabbed his arm, wailing something about starting fresh together. Kyle, being Kyle, responded with the emotional depth of a deflating whoopee cushion. "Yeah, I don't really do drama, babe." And just like that, he left her standing there alone, mascara streaking down her face, Instagram career in smoking ruins, surrounded by visual aids of her own stupidity. I leaned against the wall, feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. And maybe a little bit of homicidal glee. Mrs. Blevins clapped me on the back so hard my spine cracked. "Well, partner," she said, raising her thermos in salute. "You ready to finish this?" I nodded. Because now came the grand finale. The thing that would truly make sure Madison never forgot the day she messed with the wrong man, the wrong bird, and the wrong pensioner. And trust me, it was going to be legendary. Madison was still upstairs, sobbing into a pillow that definitely cost more than my first car, while Mrs. Blevins and I set up the final blow. It was poetic. It was brutal. It was stupidly simple. We sent the receipts. Every juicy, disgusting, undeniable piece of evidence, screenshots, hotel bookings, videos Mango accidentally photobombed while screaming profanity, straight to Madison's precious inner circle, her best friends, her yoga group, her family's "We are so proud of our Madison" group chat. All of it. And then, just for fun, Mrs. B scheduled a public Facebook post to go live from Madison's profile with one glorious caption. "Turns out being trashy is a full-time job. Thanks for the memories, Kyle." #self-sabotage queen. We stood back, admiring our work like deranged Pinterest moms showing off a particularly violent arts and crafts project. Mrs. Blevins wiped a tear from her eye. "Beautiful," she whispered. "Just beautiful." Madison's scream from upstairs hit a new octave only dogs could hear. We barely had time to high-five before the front door flew open with a bang that shook the walls. It wasn't Kyle. It wasn't Madison's friends. It was Madison's parents. Apparently, thanks to our little mass message, they'd dropped everything, mid-dinner, and sped over like the world's angriest, most judgmental SWAT team. They stormed in, faces beet red, eyes locked onto the woman-child sobbing upstairs. I turned to Mrs. Blevins. Plan?" She shrugged. "Ad-lib it, cowboy." So I did the only thing a man standing next to a bloodthirsty pensioner and a foul-mouthed parrot could logically do. I walked right past Madison's parents, straight into the middle of the living room, threw my arms out wide, and shouted, "Welcome to the divorce party! Confetti's by the door! Betrayal cupcakes in the kitchen!" Silence. Everyone froze. Even Mango. And then Mrs. Blevins blew an air horn so loud the neighbor's car alarm went off. Madison's mom burst into tears. Her dad looked like he was calculating how much it would cost to pretend he never had children. Madison, mascara streaming down her face like a bad Banksy painting, stumbled halfway down the stairs. "Jake, please." I held up a finger. "Nope. Save it for your OnlyFans, Madison." Mango squawked. "OnlyFans! OnlyFans! Pay to betray!" Kyle's car screeched out of the driveway. Madison collapsed on the steps. Her parents walked out without a word. I grabbed the divorce papers, printed, signed, and ready, and dropped them neatly on the console table like a mic drop. Mrs. Blevins raised her thermos. "To Karma," she said. "To Mango," I added. "Caw, B asterisk TCH," Mango yelled. And without another word, without looking back, without waiting for anyone's permission or forgiveness, we walked out into the cool night air like goddamn legends. The door slammed behind us.